Okay, greetings friends. Alright, the topic of this video, as is every video, is about language. Okay, now specifically today I'm going to be talking about something that is referred to as a TV distinction. Okay, it's also referred to as formal or informal you. Okay, now for many of us who have studied European languages, take for example Spanish, French, German, okay, pretty much all of them, mostly, you're going to have some type of distinction between an informal you, take Spanish, tú, all right, or a formal you, Spanish, usted, okay? Now, for English, this is what I'm talking about. This is the topic, all right? Now, okay, so we've got that distinction between formal and informal you, okay? Looking at languages as a whole, all right, basically Japanese, you've got these honorific stuff, and then same with Korean, which is like another layer of your formality spectrum. Okay, and then when you get into like Southeast Asia languages like Thai and Vietnamese, like the way that you choose a pronoun to someone you're talking to is much more complicated. And so, for example, like when people ask you, how old are you, how much money do you make, how many children do you have when they first meet you, this is completely normal because when they ask you that, they're setting like a relationship between you and the person you're talking to, right? You and them. And so you've got a whole, there's like, I don't even know, like 10 or 12 different pronouns you have to choose the way you do it. So that's just spectrum, okay? We've got English on the one hand, that's basically just you, all the same for anyone. And then you have like Spanish, where you choose Japanese, Korean, then down to Southeast Asia, when you get a whole bunch of them. And then there's other languages like in Polynesia, where you've got like the King speech, which is kind of along the same lines like the honorifics in Japanese and Korean. Okay, now that that's basically a quick overview, all right, of like world languages and formality distinctions, like interlocutor you might hear or something, whatever. Okay, also, what I'm getting at here is this, for an English speaker, this like way of viewing the world is very different because everyone is you. Now, especially for me, like my main experience with this is in Turkish, because I have, like every person I see and I'm going to talk to, I have to make a decision if I'm going to call this person San, like informal, or Sis, formal, right? And so it's very different the way that you have, like you have to choose, right? I mean, you have to choose something if you're going to talk to this person. There's ways around it, which is interesting. Like you can use a lot of the third person things, but in a language like Spanish, you can't really do that because the third person grammar is the same as the formal um, second person, right? So it's interesting, and just I guess for me, just having always to like to choose and to set up like this relationship boundary between the person I'm talking to, and even so, here's what I'm trying to say. This is kind of interesting, right? In different languages, this boundary can move. Like for example, in Russian and the Slavic languages, I think it's much more common. Well, Russian and I know a little bit of Serbian, Croatian. Okay, that's what I can say for Slavic. It seems like, especially for Russian, like you call people вы a lot more. You use the formal a lot more. And when you drop to that informal, it's much more personal and close. Alright? As opposed to, I think, Spanish, which I don't have as much experience with, but Spanish people use to much more easily. It's much easier to use too. So like basically like you've got this spectrum, right? Of so here's very informal. I'm just talking about TV. So here's very informal. Here's the very formal, right? And where do you draw this line between, okay, now I'll start to use formal, now I'll start to use informal? And I think that line is different for different languages. Like what I said, okay, for Russian, like it's more up here. Like like it's better to be formal in Russian. But for Spanish, like maybe that line is a little bit lower. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. And also it's different for people too. Like an individual person, like let's take a bunch of speakers of, I don't know, Hungarian. I think they have a TV too. And like one person might be more predisposed to use the informal, while another person would be more predisposed to use the formal. Okay, so basically the topic of this video is, okay, we started off, I introduced this TV distinction, okay, and we took that across all languages, and how it's not just TV, you can have like honorifics, King's Speech, like Southeast Asia, you basically choose, it's a lot more established or whatever. And I took it to the TV distinction, we looked at, okay, like you have to set yourself up with this, you know, boundary between a person. And then, but that, like, when you use informal and formal will be different within a different language. You know what I mean? And even within the same language within different people. Pretty much the topic of this video. TV distinction. Yeah. Okay. I spent a little bit of time in Serbia, a little bit of time in Bosnia. Okay, practicing that language. Great. Probably go to the Philippines this summer. Need to beef up on my Tagalog. Okay. It's kind of been pushed off under the. It's been swept under the rug. Need to bring that guy out. Beef up my Tagalog a little bit. So that's it. Stop.